Where did you find that?
Marie Claudette. The ring she used to wear is still on her finger. Mary Beth's fingers are here, too.
So you remember them. Your witches.
I remember them in pieces that fall apart when I look too hard.
Part of Julian's in that doll. You were very close with him. Did you ever tell him why you wanted to be alive? Why are you here, Lasher? Tell me.
What if you don't like it?
I like everything about you.
That's not true.
If you don't tell me what you want, I can't help you achieve it.
Hey, listeners, welcome to the Vamp Cast. I'm Lara.
I'm Billie with an IE.
I'm Mark.
And I'm Becky. Today we're covering the Mayfair Witches as it's a part of Anne Rice's Immortal Universe. This is Season 2, Episodes 1 through 3.
And keep in mind, this is a spoiler-full podcast about the first 3 episodes of Mayfair Witches Season 2. So, if you have not watched it, stop the podcast now, go back, watch it, and come back and listen to us.
This season's stellar cast consists of Alexandra Daddario, who plays Rowan Fielding, also known for The White Lotus, Baywatch, Percy Jackson's, and The Olympians.
We also have Jack Houston playing Lasher. He's known for Boardwalk Empire, Kill Your Darlings, the 2016 remake of Ben-Hur, American Hustle, and the Twilight Saga Eclipse.
And then there's Mr. Harry Hamlin playing Cortland Mayfair, best known for Mad Men, LA Law, Glee, Shameless, and Clash of the Titans, and I know him best as Lisa Rinna's husband on The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills.
And there's Alyssa Gerals, and who plays Mona Mayfair. We also could remember her in the show or TV show Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And that kind of came and went, everybody. Okay.
We're here tonight to just talk about the first 3 episodes since we're a little bit late, and we're just going to go through, give our initial thoughts at first on season 2, and then we'll go episode by episode, giving a quick synopsis and then our thoughts on each of those episodes. So why don't you go ahead, Mark, and give us your initial thoughts on season 2 so far?
Season 2 so far, the funniest is when we decided it's like, oh, we'll do this. I was like, oh, do I have to suffer through that again? Well, it's not as bad. I wasn't suffering this time as much. It was interesting to go back into that world because we did just cover it as a whole for season 1. But I found it a little bit more, a little bit more answers, a lot more tolerable. I'm not trying to bash it in any way, but I like the actors. I like the characters. I want to see them move forward, but it kind of intrigued me at certain points. I'm like, okay, I'm seeing where Rowan is going. The idea of Lasher being born, interesting. But and then how the Mayfair family, as it were, are working as a whole. So it's intrigued me to keep up so far. That's all I could say.
Well, I didn't want you. I wasn't sure I wanted to be dragged back into this either. I'm a big book reader, or I'm at least a book reader of the Witching Hour series, and I did not really care for the first season. Wasn't sure if I wanted to start on this second season. I've decided to try at least to detach myself from the books because so much of season 1 did not touch upon hardly any of the book, very little of it. So I thought I'd do that this time, but they are actually trying to get a little bit closer to the second book, Lasher, in this season. And there's obvious stuff that they're going to have to not depict in this show just for, some of the reasons that it would not be easily accepted on regular TV. But I don't know. The first episode was okay. I'm kind of lukewarm on these second episodes. I don't know. I guess I told you, Becky, that I kind of yelled, "I hate you" a few times at the TV. I'm trying to tamp down my frustration, but you may still hear it in some of my reviews.
That's fair.
What'd you think, Billy?
Well, like you, I'm an Anne Rice book reader, but I am more Vampire Chronicles than Mayfair Witches. So I actually got introduced to the Mayfair Witches through the last few novels when she initially was going to conclude the Vampire Chronicles, in which some things happen and there's a vampire witch crossover. So I knew basically I got the gist of what happened in this series from that. However, having not actually committed to reading the books in the same way for the Mayfair books the same way you did, I wasn't as flabbergasted by the show. I am aware, like I have read here and there, and it's been a long time since I read Lasher and Taltos, but having known what's supposed to happen, of course, there were some things in the show that I wasn't really cool on, but I did like the fact that they are starting to now integrate both worlds in this season. So I'm really, really excited about that. I have some quips about how they are portraying how the supernatural kind of function in this world. Because one thing I loved about Anne Rice's writing is that the supernatural existed and it was obvious that it existed, but it wasn't so like Harry Potter or Charmed.
Theatrical. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's an issue I have too. It might just be an aesthetic with me that I just don't like, but whenever I see something that is theatrical, like Harry Potter, like you mentioned, it always feels a little more sophomoric and cutesy to me. Whereas if I see something that seems magical but subdued, similar to like how we just recently reviewed Nosferatu or Robert Eggers' The Witch, it's very subdued, but you can feel it. It's almost like a vibration that you feel around you that things are magical, but they're not like waving their hands at things or like speaking incantations or anything strange like that. You can just feel the magic in the air. I don't know. I just like that so much better, and it always feels a little bit more grown up and sophisticated to me.
Yes.
When I
as we
read
said-
Anne Rice's books, that's what it feels like. But the
Right.
show is not giving me that feeling.
When we initially covered season 1, we talked about how it was established in the books that the witches were not really quote unquote witches; they were just powerful psychics. They could talk to spirits.
And they could speak to spirits. Yeah.
Right. So when I imagine Lasher, I actually think of the demon in Paranormal Activity. Incorporeal, invisible, you don't know what the heck he's going to do. All you can do is look around and see for signs of, doors closing, curtains opening on their own, that kind of thing. Not what this was, And then the whole, they did rituals in the books and stuff, but they didn't really cast spells.
Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't like a Agatha all along kind of thing where it was twirly,
Precisely.
whirly, spelly, rhythmic and rhyming of like making spells for something. Yeah, you just feel it in the air, like you said. It's one of those things that are imposed upon on people. So it's not like they make a little
how do you
movie.
feel, Becky?
I got into the first episode. I thought it was really neat. The second episode, I don't hate it as much. I like it better than last season, but I'm not completely sold on it. I do appreciate the setting. I do appreciate the acting. I think some of my problem is I can't buy into a couple of the main characters, not because of the actors, they're stellar actors. I just don't feel like they fit the part, and I can't buy into them in these intense, deep roles. And that's where I'm having a hard time really just going all in. But it wasn't terrible. The first episode was great. The next two were cool. It's neat to learn some things that, having not read all of the books, and I know these aren't, perfect to the book, but at least there's something that's coming from it that could lead to some cool storylines later on.
Yeah, and I would say there's a lot of people who do like the show. We'll admit that, and they're generally, from what I've seen, not book readers. So, like general audiences do seem to like the show a lot because I see them really enjoying it in comments and stuff, and usually I hear most of the complaints from people who have read the books.
Usually that's the case. Every time
Mhm.
you compare
Yeah.
a book to a film adaptation or a TV adaptation, you're gonna have.
Although I would say that's not the case with Interview with the
Yeah.
Vampire. I mean, there are some people who didn't like it who were book readers, but overall, a lot of book readers have really liked that adaptation.
I just
Yeah.
feel like the Mayfair Witches are lacking its essential gothicness. And it's supposed to be an adaptation of a gothic epic. It doesn't feel like a gothic story on the TV.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
only thing gothic about it is in New Orleans, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Just have that Southern Gothic feel. And I think the one thing that I was disappointed about with it the most is that when we see Interview with the Vampire, it takes bold swings. Like, it is not afraid to touch some of Anne's more taboo subjects, you know? And even, you know, Roland Jones is like, here's Anne's subject matter. It's very taboo. Let's take it up to 10 or 11, you know, like make it, like take that subject matter and go even further with it. Like, they are not afraid to do that. Whereas this show, like, the book itself was even more sexual and one might say
You
erotic
aren't
than some of the
kidding.
books of with the vampire. And they will not touch that with a 10-foot pole. Like, when Lasher, we'll talk about this later, but some of the sex scenes and stuff are so watered down, and it's like, we do not want to express too much sexuality in this show about a book that was all about female sexuality and a lot of taboo subjects. So it's just kind of funny that they are trying so hard to downplay a lot of the stuff that they're trying to express from the book, but they don't want to come out and say that that's what it is.
Let's just get Robert Eggers on the phone and we'll get this all fixed.
Right?
Yes, exactly.
We can make this perfect, okay?
So let's head into our first episode, episode 1, with the title Lasher, which is the name of the second book, similar to episode 1 of last season. The title of that episode was The Witching Hour, which was the first book. And the synopsis is, new mother Rowan Fielding is determined to understand what Lasher has become as the supernatural child birthed in season 1 rapidly grows from a toddler to a child to an adolescent in the span of days. She contacts a colleague, Lark, to help her with her diagnosis of Lasher, while Sip and the Talamasca is hell-bent on capturing him. Rowan receives ghostly visits from Aunt Millie, encouraging her to end Lasher now while there is still time. It's no sin in killing the devil, she says. Rowan does make one attempt at killing her spawn as he sleeps, but is unable to. Is it her motherly love or love of his power that stops her? Because Rowan also discovers an advantage to her powers when she cures a young girl of cancer. After a tumultuous magical conflict with a teen Lasher, the boy escapes to the streets of the French Quarter, where he finds an alluring woman, only to return to Rowan with her dead body.
Dun, dun, dun. Enter the evil peen. That's going to be my focus this entire season.
Yeah.
So when we think of this episode,
I really thought the way they did him growing up was super cool. There was I don't want to bring up Twilight, but I can't help but bring up Twilight because it made me think of the Renesmee.
Yeah.
How fast she grew up.
Yep.
But the actors hired to play the different versions of him, I thought did a great job. And that the one scene of him pulling out his teeth,
oh my gosh.
that creeped me the F out.
Mm-hmm.
And did anyone else think that adolescent Lasher looked a lot like, I wrote it here in my notes, because I knew I was going to forget his name. Castiel from Supernatural. Did anybody else think he looked like him?
I never watched Supernatural.
I never watched Supernatural, but
Oh, well.
Neither did I.
I guess
I thought you were going to say the teen from Agatha all along because I'm like, oh, he kind of looked
Billie?
a little like
Yeah.
him.
I've not seen Supernatural. I'm sorry.
No. The character is Billie and Agatha all along. But I have to agree with you, Becky, about that. I thought of it as like him growing up fast or growing really rapidly within like 2 or 3 days. Literally reminded me of WandaVision with the two boys as they grow. It's like literally, it's like within 30 seconds he went from like toddler to teen. And you're like, well, what's going on here?
Yeah, and that just reminds me that Wanda had the same like magically expedited
Birth, right?
pregnancy that
and
Rowan had.
And it kind of it's like I think about it now, and I'm like, is it incest to give birth to a reincarnated version of a man that you screwed?
I still struggle with her birthing her lover. I mean, that's just, they did do give us some explanations on that, and I appreciate it, but it still freaks me out.
And does the Montessori method work on a demon child? And raising it? I don't think so.
It did not appear to work here.
I do agree. I liked the little creepier parts with Lasher, him pulling out his teeth, and her going up to baby Lasher, who shouldn't even be able to talk, and he goes, little demonic child. And I just think it's so funny that the showrunners try to take parts from the novels that are definitely weird parts of the novel, but they try to water them down so that when you see them, they just seem like either weird or you're like, what's going on here? Because Lasher just wants to drink milk
I
all
was
the time.
gonna ask,
Milk.
I can't remember if that was part of the novel or not. If that milk thing was something they added, because I was like, "What's?" Okay, I couldn't remember.
Part of the novel, but he does not drink cow's milk.
It's supposed to be mother's milk.
He drinks
his mother's
okay,
milk. That is one thing
all the time.
I am grateful they did not bring over from the book.
Yeah, and obviously they're not going to put that in the show, but just take it out. Why does it have to be in there? Because it's just weird now. I mean, that was the taboo and crazy thing about it. But also, if you'll remember, last season, the Talamasca abducted Cyprian's sister.
You're right.
That disgusting man said, "Is she lactating? Oh, take her with her. She may prove useful." It's been 3 episodes now. We haven't even heard of her. Cyprian hasn't even mentioned her. It's like, does he know or care that his sister is missing? And why? It's like if they brought up the thing about the lactating, and I'm like, oh, they're going to go there with the milk, and then now they just dropped it. Maybe she'll appear later, but it's like, it's funny that this much time has passed and Cyprian hasn't even worried about his sister.
He seems very, very stressed out and very singularly focused.
Yes, he just loves.
We'll just.
Well, I was gonna say he just
that.
loves Rowan so much. That's all he cares about. It seems.
Is it her?
I don't know. I never got any sense that they even liked.
Yeah, I got the feeling
that
he's kind of over her. He's after she chose Lasher over him, and I feel like he's just obsessed with taking Lasher down. That is his primary focus. It doesn't really have anything to do with.
Well, jumping a little bit, I think it's episode 2 that this is covered. Jumping just a little bit, and we'll go back to episode 1. But jumping just to sort of prove what I just said, Moira has a conversation with him where she reads his thoughts, and she goes, "You still love her?" Or you still love her. How can you still love her? So his motives, I guess we could say his motives are unclear then, because he's probably conflicted with 2 different ambitions.
It was super creepy when he tried to kiss. Lasher tried to kiss Rowan.
Yeah.
He wanted the milk.
That's all AMC is going to give us. That's as much incest that AMC is going to give us.
As I said, I'm trying to keep a little away from the books, so I won't mention anything
if it's
about
Rowan's
them.
milk that he needs to grow faster or whatever, and that's why the idea of the drinking the milk. It's also him taking back the power that he gave her while being inside her,
That's
and
true.
rebirthing. So that's how she got her power. So it's a way for him to suck it away, if you think about it. But taking that idea, like you said, from the book was a bad idea, I think.
I think they should have just left that in the book if they weren't
Utilize
going
it,
to
yeah.
actually use it for
And little baby
its
Omen
purpose.
child Lasher tells her, "I want it back. I want it back." So that
The
would make sense.
fire.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
They made it seem at times during his fast aging that he knew what he once was, and then other times he seemed completely innocent and oblivious. So I was very confused by that, but perhaps that's the point, and maybe I just wasn't paying close. I need to rewatch, but it seemed very
But that's
back and
true.
forth.
That is
Yeah,
true. He's born a child. He has no memory of his past, but he starts to get glimpses of his past of his past as he ages. And so he does have that naivety about him, but he's also
yeah.
sort of Lasher at heart. So he does have that darkness to it. Is basically like
Mhm.
Billy
Yeah.
said, he's a little
All
Omen
for
child.
you.
Yeah.
And I have to also say this too. It's kind of weird because when he's approached or he's asked about it, he says, "I remember them in pieces that fall apart when I look too hard." Now, that's something more of a grown-up would say, not like like a teen or something. It's like, okay, is he extremely intelligent now? Does he have the full world knowledge in his head as by the time he's a teenager of where he left off, or he just doesn't remember everything at all?
Or he's just doing normal Lasher cunning and tricking people, so
Mhm.
that way they, don't focus too hard on what he's doing and his behavior.
Yeah, it's like Home Alone.
Well, she seems very, hell bent on getting him to tell her why he's there. Why did he want to come back as this person? And you guys may know more from the
Mhm.
books, but did he know he was going to lose all of his power to her when he made that choice to go inside of her that way?
My understanding,
Well, considering this is the first time this has ever happened in, at least the known history of his universe,
Okay.
yeah,
I don't
and
think he knew
spirits
what was going to
in the Anne
actually
Rice
happen.
universe, spirits are motivated by one singular thing, and that's to be as much of alive as they could possibly be, because they crave sensation, they crave the flesh, and that's basically what Lasher seems to focus on during it, is becoming flesh again. That's all they want. They want to taste food, feel wind, make love.
Yeah. Because isn't that what he tells
Mhm.
Dolly Jean? He's like, what?
Yep.
She's like, why did you come back or something? He said to tie a tie,
Oh, yeah.
to dance or
That's
whatever
why,
it was.
if
He just
if
wants
you've
to feel
read
alive
Queen
again.
of the Damned, which you'll find
I
more
did.
about. Yeah, Amel, his reasoning for coming back into the flesh and creating vampires is because he liked the taste of blood. He wanted to taste blood. So that's why the spirits do what they do.
And then we have Rowan actually trying to be a doctor this season, and sending some blood samples that she gets from Lasher to her colleague Lark, who's a new character this season. What do you guys
he's
think of
cool.
Lark?
I really like the actor playing him, and
Mhm.
I kind of will get more into him in the later episodes, but I kind of felt bad for him. But it's obvious they're setting it up that they have a good some kind of past together, and it seems he's still hanging on to something. I don't think she is, or maybe it's just because she's so preoccupied with this demon spawn that she birthed. But I'm interested. I hope he doesn't get killed off. I do hope he becomes more a part of the story, if not just to help her figure out Lasher, but or for to give her, a healthy relationship, something. I think I like his addition. I really like
Mhm.
the actor, so that
Mhm.
could be why.
I like Clark because he
Cool.
is a distinctly Anne Rice element into the story, because she always tried to rationalize the supernatural occurrences as much as possible, or she wanted to distill the scientific reasoning behind it. And that's what Lark is here to do. Lark is here to tell us why this demon exists, what the heck is this demon, and how can we understand it on a material level.
That's cool.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't seen this actor before, but he seems fine. I have an issue with him and Rowan because they both, to me, look like they should be managing a surf shop
Yeah, very
rather
true.
than being neurosurgeons. I guess it's just the way they talk. And I'm sorry I'm shitting on the show. I'm trying really hard to be positive, but for some reason, Alexandria Daddario, every time I hear her, sounds like a Valley girl. Her intonation, I can't take it seriously. So she doesn't seem like the confident, strong Rowan of the books, even though they've given her a little bit better writing this year. Like she's not so bumbling, and she's actually trying to do things that Rowan would have done. It still irks me. I guess she can't change her voice, so I'm just gonna have to live with it. And Lark is so like cash. He just seems like he should be hanging out at a surf shop than being a neurosurgeon. But
That's
maybe
funny.
He did seem like
he'll grow
comedic
on me as
relief
the season goes.
in the his first appearance. But you were talking about that the actress. What's her name? Yes, I think she is a phenomenal
Alexandria
actress.
Daddario.
So what I'm about to say, don't at me, people. I just don't. I can't buy her as I could. I didn't. She didn't feel like this strong character that I believed Rowan was supposed to be. And now that I'm listening to the book, she definitely doesn't feel like. So I just and Lasher. The actor is a great actor, but I can't believe him to be this
character.
Yeah, I just they don't work for me, and that is where I get taken out of the story. But when you bring other characters in, I find them interesting, but the other ones I can't buy them as the characters they're supposed to be.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just a miscast, I think. I feel the same way about Francis Ford Coppola's Dracula is one of my favorite movies of all time. But I think Winona Ryder and Keanu Reeves were horribly miscast in that movie. And I always overlook it because I love the movie and I love all the characters around them. But to me, Winona does not have the timeless face that needed to be used in that movie. She was too much of a contemporary kind of look, as was Keanu. So I never really have warmed up to their characters in that movie, but it's fine. Sometimes I can overlook it if the story is good enough. It just, at this moment for me, Mayfair Witches is
like
not
I said
good enough
previously,
to overlook
I
miscast
think it was probably
characters.
our last Vampire Chronicles episode, they're going to keep the Mayfair Witches going even when people don't like it, because they have to. It's part of their more successful show that's going on right now. It's part of it.
Still blows my mind.
Right, they're going to have to drag it along like dead weight till they get to the parts that they need to get to, and then that's that. But this miscast stuff, it definitely grinds my gears because because as you said, I always imagined Rowan as this very steely woman, very sure of herself. She actually reminds me of my younger sister, actually. When I think of Rowan, I think of my younger sister. And my younger sister would never act so... It seems like Rowan acts very, like, complacent sometimes.
Yes.
And I don't like that.
Nope.
A person who has all the powers of a bloodline that's been going on for generations, and she's very complacent. But yet at the same time, she's also power hungry, which is like a weird mix.
Yeah.
You know? So I definitely have to agree with you, Becky, because it's not giving Rowan Mayfair. It's giving something else.
Yeah.
So with that, let's move on to
episode 2 is titled
2.
Ten of Swords, and after disposing of the body of Lucy Mayfair for Lasher, Rowan must find him before more people are hurt. While on a beachside home, Griffin Mayfair comes upon a fully grown Lasher, attracted to the woman by her alluring scent, and she is equally attracted to him. After a brief encounter with Lasher, Griffin dies mysteriously as Lasher runs from the scene. Meanwhile, Sip finds an ally in Moira Mayfair, the sister of Tess, who blames Lasher for her sister's death. Within his stone prison, Cortland has a contentious visit with the spirit of his intimidating father, Julian. After another mysterious Mayfair death, a desperate Rowan releases Cortland from his imprisonment.
That Julian Cortland thing, I'm sorry, I just laughed.
And this is Uncle Julian, right?
Mm.
Okay. As far as I'm concerned, Julian's my favorite
Mhm.
Mayfair because I think he's like the dandy character of the family.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm. And this is what drives me so crazy. It's because there are like maybe 3 very beloved characters in the Mayfair Witches, and that is
Mhm.
Michael, Aaron, and Julian. They've already taken Michael and Aaron and compressed them into Cyprian, who really isn't like either character, really. And then they've taken Uncle Julian, who, like, he definitely has faults. He is a problematic character for sure. But like you said, Billy, he's a dandy. He's kind of this open-minded libertine in the turn of the century. He's a bisexual
Mhm.
character, but he leans more heavily gay. And he is the one character in the book who knows what discovers what Lasher is up to and actually works to stop Lasher. And it seems like in the show they're gonna make him a terrible character. Like, maybe not a terrible character, maybe he'll be um done well, but he is not a protagonist, and he does not seem like he's going to be
Fun-
helpful. Like, he is
fun
on Lasher's
fact,
side. Is
if you
Team
follow me on
Lasher.
Instagram, my name on Instagram is the Dandy Warlock. That was inspired by Uncle Julian.
That's awesome.
Yeah. That's where I got that idea from because I always loved that character and I always wanted to create an Uncle Julian character of my own for any story that I write. So the Dandy Warlock I've kind of held on to it on purpose so that way if anyone tried to write a story with a similar character, be like, nah, I've had this tag name since like 2016. That's my character. But that's who I got the idea for.
So I feel a lot of people are not going to be happy with Julian, but I guess we'll see. It seems right now he's kind of at least he's terrible to Cortland. And as I've heard from another podcast, maybe this is just Cortland's impression of him.
That's a good
because Cortland
I
is very
hope
intimidated
so,
by his
because I just
father.
found that whole interaction between them. I just thought I thought it was funny. I didn't find any. I don't know. No, it wasn't. Yeah, even when he went to
Anything scary or creepy about it?
I was
Even
like,
when
really?
Cortland's
I just
cut
laughed.
his arm off.
I laughed out loud. So
Yeah, the cutting of the arm thing got me too. The funny thing about Lasher is within this episode makes me laugh. You could actually look at him almost like what the vampire needs, because the vampire needs to drink blood because it can symbolize both life and death. But with him, like, it's like sex and milk.
Mhm.
But the only thing I understand from the sex and the milk is like, obviously it has to be sex with a Mayfair. And it's always a Mayfair. It's the smell or something. But it just feels like he's sucking it so he could get more power out of each. It's not just him getting power back from Rowan.
is he taking their power? Do we know
That's
that?
what I'm feeling. That was the point of it, because he sleeps with cousin Gifford, and she winds like bleeding to death. Yeah, she winds up bleeding or hemorrhaging to death afterwards. So it's like, oh, okay, it's like another body mommy Rowan has to get rid of for him, or he just have to figure out himself. It's kind of.
And I think it's funny how they're really trying to be a bit cagey about what he's doing with these women, because you never outwardly hear him mention sex or anyone else mention sex. he starts kissing Gifford, and that's all. And that, I mean, they're fully clothed the entire time. I don't even think Lasher's shirt is slightly unbuttoned when he is in the kitchen drinking milk afterwards. But then you just hear a scream, and there's hemorrhaging, and then you see some blood maybe on their skirt or on the sofa, but they never say what's going on. They're just trying to be very cagey about it. And that's why I feel like in Interview with the Vampire, if they're going to talk about something like, oh my God, some of the very candid discussions that like Louis has with Armand about sex or something like that, it's like they just throw it out there. They're like, we're going to do it and we're not going to be afraid of it. So you like buy into it, whereas in this show, they try to like, it's like a young child trying to explain something that they think is naughty or nasty to their friends or their parents, and they have to like skirt around what they're actually trying to say. And like, this is a show for adults. We can be adults here. You don't have to be crude. It doesn't have to be horrible, but you can say what's happening. You could say like
the evil peen.
I don't even know what it would be. I guess it would be, his evil peen caused her to hemorrhage.
No, it's implied.
They don't even mention sex. It's just
it's heavily
after
implied.
their encounter, or something. I think
like. But yeah, I think about that scene in Interview with the Vampire when Louis comes in all cocky and basically tells Lestat, "Take off your pants." This is what I won't say it, but y'all remember. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yes.
Yeah.
He's like, this is what's about to happen. They could bring a little bit of that here and not lose whatever it is they're trying not to lose. But I agree with you. It's implied, but give your watchers the benefit of the doubt to be grown up enough to tell us what's happening.
I feel like the producers of the show are walking a tightrope. And it's a moral tightrope because they're trying to be sensitive to the audience. And this novel is all about the exploitation of women. So I think they're doing that on purpose because of it. Well, okay.
Not all of it. I think it's about women. Oh, I mean, the entire Mayfair family is a matriarchy, which is unusual. But the women have all the power in this family.
Yeah, but I would argue that the only reson why they have that power is because of Lasher, who's a predator.
And I think that's why he's trying to take it back.
No. Their powers were enhanced by Lasher, but not in the way this show shows. They all had psychic powers of their own through his genetic through his practices of genetic coding and everything. Just the
I know what you're trying.
The word I'm trying to figure out.
I keep thinking of like the Holocaust and what the Nazis were doing.
Yeah, I'm thinking of a different word right now, but basically he's been genetically pairing selectively breeding the family, and that has been helpful in making some powerful witches throughout the family, but the power is always theirs. It is their power. He just finds ways to manipulate them to get to a particular type of power, but it is all their power. He doesn't steal it from them, and he doesn't give it to them either. He does do things for them, like create storms, steal things, do harm to those that ask him to do harm, or he'll do it on his own sometimes. But I don't think he ever enhances their powers the way that they show in the TV show. And maybe in the TV show, that's what they want us to believe, that without Lasher, these witches have no power.
Well, they say that he even their own power to Rowan that they're weak. He's saying that all these Mayfair women are weak.
Mm-hmm. Well, I was gonna comment from it from like a queer man perspective, because Uncle Julian being my favorite character. There's a part in, I think it's either this episode or episode 3, where I can't remember who's talking to Rowan, but she's like, Julian was ambitious for the power. He wanted the same power as the matriarchs, and Lasher basically used Julian in every way he could, in every conceivable way. She said that, which was hinting at the fact that even Lasher and Julian had relations. And from my perspective, it seemed like they were lumping Julian in with the women of the Mayfair clan because of his otherness and queerness, that they did that. So, which having or being a part of that community, obviously, sometimes gay men are lumped in with the women, and like I don't know if it's still done today, but if you watch like true crime, a lot of the reasons why they never really fully investigate like the murders of gay men is because they think we live a quote unquote not problematic, but like dangerous lifestyle. So our group is usually easily picked on by groups like that because we're disempowered and disenfranchised for that same reason. So from my perspective, the women, Uncle Julian, they're used in this story, but that's I think the beautiful part of this narrative is because there's so many ways a person can look at it and interpret what's going on here. But that's also what makes it so horrifying.
Yeah, as Rowan says, I think maybe it's in the third episode that we'll get to. Lasher is a curse on the family. Like without him, they may not be as powerful a family as they are. I do believe that they would still have their powers, but he has empowered this whole family from generations and generations of manipulation and, just being able to build up all the power within their power, using their power to build more power.
Go ahead, Billie.
I'm sorry. I was going to say I could be making leaps with my conclusions. I could easily be making leaps, but that was just merely where I was coming from with, my perception on what was happening to the characters.
Yeah, I like it. I like the point of view that he's done, that he has been controlling this whole family too and using them.
The relationship with Rowan and Cortland, first off, I want to JoJo is the best. I think whenever if you put her in more scenes, this show might have more. It might. I don't know. She plays the role beautifully. I loved her. I think it's in. Is it in this episode where she confronts Cortland, or is it the third? Okay, yeah. I'll wait for all that.
It's the next one. It's the next one.
But I think that it's interesting that when Rowan discovers that when Lasher's not near her, her power that she got from him isn't as strong. And I think it's a cool plot point, and maybe it's from the books. I don't know. But it also annoys me that once again, they're putting her in a position where she can't fix it without releasing Cortland from his imprisonment. She can't, be this powerful woman unless Lasher's right there near her. And that was my beef with season 1, and it continues to be a beef here, is that they make this, especially after listening to the books and getting to know her book side, they are doing her a disservice because they continue to make her look like a woman who has hints of strength but falters because she cannot do it without a man around her.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yep.
It's bothering me.
I didn't like that either. No, I don't. I agree. Was there anything else in that episode that we wanted to discuss? Like maybe Moira? Is this where Moira? No, I guess Moira appears in the first episode, but we get a little bit more with her. Is this the episode where she runs into
allies?
And this is where she accuses him of still loving Rowan. Him still loving Rowan. Sorry.
I think Morris, along with JoJo, is probably the strongest of the family. But I think Lasher made one comment to Rowan in the previous episode about something one of his visions that he sees as he lifts a veil and there's this woman standing before him. I have a feeling that's supposed to be Moira. I think she might end up being the one he's supposed to successfully mate with, but I don't think she's going to be for that.
Well, it's heavily implied that Moira is powerful because people have to try to screen their mind when she's around, and her mom has to stay perpetually drunk and also play music so that way she can be in the same room as her. So it's implied that she's super powerful.
Yeah, and we haven't brought up Alicia yet, who is both Tess and Moira's and Daphne's mom, who Lasher comes to in the end, and she tells Lasher how, because, for the majority of this family, they're in love with Lasher. He is their superstar, and they've been waiting for him.
Consider him
They've been waiting for the second coming of Lasher, and now is the time. And so Alicia just tells him how she had such a crush on him, and she's so happy that he's finally come to her because she was always so jealous of Deirdre, Rowan's mother, because she was his witch, and Alicia so much wanted it to be her. And it is the end of this episode, right? Where Alicia dies as well. So she's the third Mayfair woman to die.
Down one by one.
So that will lead us into our third episode.
Is entitled Cover the Mirrors. And the synopsis is Rowan desperately partners with Cortland to try to stop Lasher. Lasher meets a fellow supernatural creature and gets a life lesson on the paranormal. And he tries his hand at aggressively taking what he wants. Meanwhile, in the entire Mayfair family gathers, hoping to entrap him with Moira, Sip, and the Talamasca, make their own plans as well. As an injured Lasher returns to Rowan, she sacrifices herself to stop the Talamasca, but is unsuccessful. Yeah, it's really meant to stop, but yeah. I just I just read what's written. Sorry, everybody, but it happens. It's fine. It's
We've seen it.
I am Rob Burgundy at this point.
Anchorman.
And I have fuck yourself, San Diego.
I love the vampire crossover.
Yeah, the vampire crossover was really, really good. I like that idea. Now it's like pulling Anne Rice's stuff together.
We get our millennial vampire Felix, who was Lestat's kind of errand boy from Interview with the Vampire. I don't know who would not have seen that, who's watching this, but yeah, he was his errand boy in New Orleans. And he happens to come across Lasher because he says Lasher smells like nothing he's ever smelled before. It's kind of like
in True Blood when they all love Sookie so much because she's fairy.
She's what?
A fairy.
Oh.
She's got fairy blood.
I liked their conversation. It helped move what Lasher does next. It helped that make sense. I do wonder when he goes after the Mayfair in the bar, does it seem like his strength has grown in the last few episodes?
Who, Lasher's?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think it's like due to the milk and him killing these people, but that's just but I'm like this. I thought the idea of the milk was like he's a growing boy. He needs to have strong bones, so he keeps drinking the milk, and he's drinking it by the gallons. But I also think the idea about the like having sex with these Mayfair women, and then they're dying or killing. I don't know if he's purposely. It's kind of like in Species 2, when you had the guy who go into space and becomes a host of the species, and every woman that he has sex with winds up dying or blows up with the fake alien. It seems like he's pulling something out of them, like he's pulling their power for himself. But that's just my guess and theory. It's just funny because he is getting stronger. It seems he's getting stronger, but he doesn't really remember who he still is, like, to some degree. He's still,
I don't
like,
think
no
he's
version.
intentionally killing these
He's
people.
not. It's like, yeah.
But
it's like
No,
an innate
I mean,
thing.
yeah, he doesn't want to kill them,
Yeah.
but it's like he can't really stop himself from
Yeah, he's like a vampire.
attraction
I
to
have a
them either.
weird. I just kind of thought of this just now. I have a weird interpretation that might explain it. So we discussed how he has a clear attraction to Rowan still, and he even tries to get with her. What if it's likely that she's the only one he's able to procreate with, and she's like his genetic match or his genetic equal, and that's why every time he gets with one of the other family members, they die. Because I kept thinking of the story of the Minotaur, where Pasiphae curses Minos to kill all the maids he beds with when he's out doing his thing, and the curse made it so where like his semen was like scorpions and snakes and stuff, so it'd kill these and every time he would, and I kept thinking about that every time I was watching that, and I was like, oh, it's kind of like Rowan's Pasiphae, and she sort of cursed him, and the only person that he can actually have relations with is Rowan. But that's like, oh, that would make sense because that she's like his genetic equal. She's the only one who can.
As I've read the book, I will just say, as another podcast that I listen to on Outlander, that when they don't want to give away book spoilers, she just says interesting.
Huh.
But I do like that we get to see Evelyn, who is a character from the book. She's not the Evelyn that we have in the book. If you guys you probably haven't read about her yet, Becky, but Aunt Evelyn, I mean Ancient Evelyn, Billie from the books. I think that's who this Evelyn is supposed to be, but she is by no means ancient. So,
I love how she
her
kept
sister Dolly Jean seems
she
older
wrote her
than
as
her.
Ancient Evelyn. I always thought it always gave me a chuckle reading that character name every time, but just like they had
because she was one of the oldest Mayfairs in the current time period with Rowan, I believe.
And then she kind of does that a lot in the story in general. Like, she doesn't refer to a character. She says what they are in the family and then their name, like cousin so-and-so, uncle da-da-da. So I always thought that was an interesting thing she did. I think it was probably a way for her to keep track of who was who.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah. I think the funniest thing, so Cortland gathers all the Mayfairs together. He says that they're going to drink I don't know,
Prosecco.
protection potion or some bullshit. He gets them all there. And so we get to start meeting more of the Mayfair family, the extended family. And I thought it was funny when Rowan was talking to the historian of the family who's doing the family tree. And it just makes me laugh because there's another woman on YouTube that I love to listen to called The Naughty Librarian who has done reviews of these books. And she's like, at this point, the Mayfair family tree is more like a stick.
And he says doesn't he say... Doesn't
because
he say
pretty
it's
much
an oddly
just a
shaped
straight
or
line.
something?
It doesn't branch off much. Yeah, he said this would be it's an interesting looking family tree, which I think is a clever wink and a nod to the book readers who know all about the sordid history of the Mayfair family.
I too enjoyed getting to meet more, and I loved Dolly Jean. I can never figure out if she's good or bad, or I just can't tell whose side she's on because the way she talks, it's like she's very pro
Yeah, she's-
Lasher, but also she talks to Rowan like, girl, get it together, pay attention. And to me, the only one that's sane is Aunt Millie,
Mhm.
even though
Don't
she's
listen to Cortland.
a ghost wandering around the house.
Hmm. Yeah, Dolly Jean is a bit of a mystery because it does seem like she's excited for Lasher to be in the world again, but then she also tells Rowan not to trust Cortland because Cortland's up to no good and trying to help Lasher. So it's like, is she Team Lasher or is she, trying to stop him? It's
I
interesting.
like
She's an
her. I like
interesting
the
character.
actress and the way she plays her very well.
Hmm. And we do get the confrontation between JoJo and her father in this episode as well, which
It
I
was
found
great.
an interesting twist on the story, really.
I was glad to see
Because
hear her just basically tell him you wanted a girl so bad to fit into all of this. Did I get that right, or did I hear her correctly? Was that what she was saying? Is that they made it evident that she definitely is a transgender person, correct? And that she feels like Cortland accepted
Yes.
her that way because he desperately wanted a Mayfair daughter.
Mm-hmm.
So he could fit in with the group and have all of that status and power. I thought that was very powerful conversation.
But to bring it back to what I was talking about earlier, another queer character being lumped in with the Mayfair women in the story.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because JoJo's not a book character, and her transgenderism was not brought up in season 1 at all. It wasn't addressed. So, I think the producers said that it just is. It was not part of the story, but it just was. But I found it interesting when she confronted Cortland because that was a very interesting thing that she said, you were so accepting of me and you really wanted me to, be myself and everything. But then I find, now I feel like you just did it because you wanted a daughter, because in this family, women are king, women have all the power in this family. And Cortland didn't want to be left out from being a powerful part of the family.
That was a very good scene.
I loved it. I have a real quick question. I was just thinking about this in the first episode when Child Lasher is hanging out in, I think it's like a bedroom. He's like holding the ancestor totem, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And then
the doll.
Right. And
and he says he's talking to the other witches.
The doll, the ancestor totem, to Rowan. So it kind of like puts a weird juxtaposition to her motives because she wants the power, but at the same time, their other Mayfair ancestors are warning Lasher not to trust her, which is like, I don't know. That's very interesting. I don't know what they're going to do with her. I'm kind of confused on what they're trying to do with Rowan.
Same. And then
me too. And I got
annoyed. It was a really great, well acted scene when he's injured after he gets beat up at the bar, and he's walking towards her, and she's again looking like she's going to be the strong one she's supposed to be and take him out, but all of a sudden she runs in front of him and takes the whatever that stuff is that the Talamasca use.
Yeah, the purple smog blasters that they have.
That is the most ridiculous thing. I'm like, they have an entire army of psychics and they have to have magic bug spray to stop someone.
Magic
I'm
mace.
like, oh, I hate it.
I shook my head.
Cheesy.
I was just like, oh, here we go again.
But I think Lasher, as he's
Mother.
walking up to Rowan, does he call her
Mother.
mom or mommy or something? Like he
Yeah, for half
becomes
a moment.
child Lasher again. And I think that's why she throws herself in front of the bullet there. And it's interesting because both in the books and what they're trying to go for in the show is this feeling of desire and revulsion, which I think is what we saw in Nosferatu when we covered Nosferatu, Billie and Mark.
No spoilers. I haven't seen it yet.
I don't want to spoil too much of the story,
Mhm.
but basically it's the story of Dracula. So, in Dracula, Mina is both desirous and revolted by Dracula. So, that's the feeling I think that Rowan is supposed to have for Lasher. She like desires him either on a sexual passionate level or on a motherly level, is maybe what they're trying to show here in the show. And she's also repulsed by him, by what he is. So I think that's what leads to all of her
That's fair.
waffling with him, and sometimes wanting to kill him and then sometimes not. And also the fact that, at least in the show, he gives her power. So, she can't decide what to do with him. And that's why, sorry, I guess we should have said they were trying to all draw Lasher to the house because Rowan's plan was to put him in a thrall. And that way he's not dead, but he can't hurt anyone. And that way, in that way, she could still retain her power. And I also think, she probably wants to retain her power because she feels like she can help people with it. She cures that little girl in episode 1 from cancer. So, she knows she has this immense power that can do good in the world.
When
and
Lark
maybe that's why she
comes
doesn't want to kill
her at
Lasher.
the house and she's on the banister with her arms up and it's raining, sorry, I'm having like thoughts while you guys are talking and I'm starting to make new conclusions. So that's why I keep going back to old stuff. But she's got her arms raised and she's like, it's like she's sort of surprised that it's raining. And in my mind, I'm thinking, because there's also a scene where she's trying to light the candles and she can't seem to make the flame come up. I'm wondering if I'm trying to, I guess, maybe determine if she's been trying to spend time trying to figure out how to harness the power herself without Lasher around. And when she makes it rain like that, it's sort of like her, I can, do something big, like alter the weather. And that's why she's like, her arms are up and raised and she looks so triumphant. I wonder if that's another aspect of the story that she's, I guess, experiencing, as she's trying to establish that she is powerful in her own right.
That's funny because that almost seems to me like a little bit of inconsistent writing, because even JoJo says to her, it's like,
but you see
can
why,
barely light a flame right now. How are you going to create a storm?
Right.
And then
But
all of a sudden she's creating a storm. So I'm like, is that inconsistent writing? Or
wasn't
does
the
Rowan have the
storm,
power?
wasn't
She
she
just
able
doesn't
to
know
do
it.
that because Lasher was still close enough?
No, I don't think so.
I think he had left by then. He had left through the basement, and I think this was after she found him gone from the basement.
Okay. I didn't.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this
It
was
was.
after even Gifford died, I think. Yeah. So I'm like, I don't know. It's confusing. And I can't tell if that's just inconsistent writing and that she has power when the writers find it convenient for her to have powers, or if it is part of the story that she just, has this magic within her. She just feels like she needs
I mean, that
Lasher
would be
to make
cool.
it stronger,
That
but she
would-
really
For
doesn't.
her to have a aha moment where she realizes she does not need this man. She could do this on her own, even if she does need to take a nap afterwards. I am for it. I am totally for it.
Jesus, take a nap.
Like, to her passing out on that couch after curing that little girl, that's like me after getting one little laundry done.
The one thing I do like, though, is that Rowan does get a little manipulative in this episode. And she's getting that because Cortland's telling her to do it. But in the book, she is very manipulative. And I think that's interesting because one of the things I felt like they weren't touching on in the first season is that a lot of the things that happen wrong is because of Rowan's hubris, that she believes so strongly that she can resolve things, that she can do things, that she can figure things out on her own, that she gets herself into a lot of trouble. So I feel like this Rowan is finally starting to become that. She uses manipulation and she feels like she can take Lasher out on her own and protect everyone by herself. And that kind of hubris is gonna, get her into some trouble, I imagine.
What's with that scene where they're all at the house and Jojo and I think it's Jojo and Moira are trying to leave, and she's like, "No, stay," and the door shuts, and then they like disappear.
They're in the thrall.
Daphne and Moira.
Oh, it was Daphne.
No, it was
and
JoJo.
Daphne and Tessa's
no, it was
sister. Or Jojo.
No, it was Jojo and
Yeah.
Daphne.
She puts
I'm
him in
sorry.
the thrall.
Daphne, the little girl.
Accidentally. What?
Because Lasher's getting near. He's out there walking on the sidewalk, and so she doesn't realize it, but she has
So now
enough
they're just
power to put
wandering
them in a
around.
thrall.
That's what I'm wondering. Because
Maybe they'll run into Julian.
I thought it was interesting when Julian is like sits forward in his chair and he says Rowan. So maybe he's going to find his way out of that little imprisonment and
That'd be cool if they brought Julian out.
that
I'd be
space.
so into it at that
come
point.
back.
Yeah. It's interesting where he is, because Millie can obviously walk around the house and appear to Rowan freely. So I'm interested in how they're going to explain that Julian is in this kind of psychic
Maybe,
space that he can't get out of.
Millie is in a ghost realm and Julian's in an isolated realm. You know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I guess we'll see in the next few episodes. So did we have anything else we wanted to add to these first
That's it
3
for me.
episodes of the
That's it
show?
for me. I think the only thing I thought was interesting is that Sip constantly talking into this little Bible like a recorder.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that was cool.
Oh, we didn't
that
even
was
mention
very
that.
cool.
Yeah, it's like his little insurance policy, and he gives it to the other woman in the Talamasca, his ally,
and he's
there,
trying
and
to
asks
help.
her to keep it for him.
Yeah.
In case they do wipe
he's trying
his
to help,
memories.
what's her name? Get her memory back. Or no, he warns her that her memory was taken. Sorry.
Yeah, but he says there's nothing he can do to help her get it back.
Right.
Once it's gone, and that's why he left that with her. So just in case they do, I can't stand that guy. By the way, oh my gosh, somebody kill him on
that dude in the
Lasher
Talamasca, whose name
can
I've
have sex
forgotten.
with him and kill him with his evil peen. I approve that one.
Yeah, and at the end of season 3 or episode 3, he is talking to someone in Amsterdam, which little note in the books, Amsterdam is the main mother house of the Talamasca. That's almost where the Talamasca starts. But yeah, he's talking to the mother house in Amsterdam, and Sip says he wants to be brought onto the case because obviously he's closely related to it, and he's like, "Oh, I asked for clearance to tell you what we're going to be doing with Lasher, but they wouldn't allow me," which is bullshit.
Slimy.
Shit. Slimy indeed. Okay, well, let me see, I'm trying to see how many episodes there are in this season. Looks like season 2. IMDb won't show me. Okay. We've got 8 episodes to go. So depending on how free we are or how excited we are to talk about the next episodes, maybe we'll come back in another 3, or maybe just
I'm good with you. I
do a
kind of
wrap
like
up
this
at the
discussion.
end.
This made me. I don't think it was all bad. I think we did find some good. So
I definitely want to go back into the books and reread so that way I can have a more sharper perspective of what's
I'm
going
loving
on.
the witching hour.
I'm gonna have to definitely say that the TV series definitely contrasts the book in a lot of ways, including eclipsing some points of view and stuff. So I need to get clarification, I guess.
Laura, I almost
And I read it probably 30 years ago. So I read it 30 years ago, but then I did listen to it on Audible again maybe 5 or 6 years ago. Just because I was gearing up to read Lasher and Taltos. And I'll have to say, this is why they have to so carefully walk this tightrope of the show. I read the first 2 or 3 chapters of Lasher and I closed it
Oh
and put it down.
my.
I'm like, I can't deal with this right now. It is very rough. So, I understand this is a very difficult show to adapt from the books. And I did not get back to those books for another 20 some years. So that's why I actually re-listened to The Witching Hour, and then I did Lasher, and then I did Taltos. And they're very interesting, but rough, rough books. So I don't even know where I was going with that. Yeah. So like I could have forgotten some things that in the book that, maybe with a fresher perspective, you'll see Billie.
All righty.
Okay. So should we discuss anywhere else you can find us?
Sure.
Billie?
Well, I and Becky and Mark and sometimes Laura, we all do our own thing sometimes. And me and Becky can be heard on Pirate Core. I host the Slay Lounge with my co-host and roommate Will, and on occasion I let other people come in. Becky will be joining me eventually.
I'm so excited.
You can find the Slay Lounge on Spotify, YouTube. We have our own Instagram. We're on all the not major, but we're on a majority of the sites that have podcasts on them, Deezer, so on and so forth. Yeah.
That could be found on the Pirate Core.
And I was just listening to you today.
You're good.
Listening to
check
your
out our
Wicked
coverage. Me and Will,
You and Will.
we're kind of goons when it comes to Wicked, and I had a lot to say about Wicked. So check us out. That recently came up yesterday, in fact. Thank you, Mark. And you should probably tuck in because it was a very long talk. We had a lot to say.
And like I was saying before, these episodes that for the Slay Lounge and for what's on tonight can be found on the Pirate Core Entertainment podcast. So that's what you would have to search. You could easily just go to the Pirate Core Entertainment Facebook page to find links, and once the episodes are posted, so that way you could just tap on it with your phone and just subscribe wherever you get your podcast. Usually it's Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Becky, you've been doing a new show recently.
Yes, my podcast, What's On Tonight, is now covering. We finished our coverage of What We Do in the Shadows, which was a lot of fun. And we are now covering the HBO Max, or is this just Max now, show medical drama The Pit, starring the absolute celebrity love of my life, Noah Wiley. And it's really good. And I know y'all know Wendy. She's going to come on with us for our next episode and give us a pretty cool viewpoint from an actual medical professional watching a medical drama and share some stories with us. So we're having a lot of fun there. I hope to have all of y'all on at some point for some show. But we'd love it if you would check us out. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and like Mark said, you can find us under the Pirate Core Entertainment Podcast.
Yep. And as always, you can find me here on Adrenaline Cinema Podcast. As always, we have some more things that we'll be doing, more movie stuff. We're probably going to go back to the original thought when we created the podcast, which is like more action, adventure, all that cool stuff. So Steve Brown and I are probably going to do Lethal Weapon Part 2. So we're going to go back to the original action kind of stuff that really spawned the idea of doing this podcast. You can find me on Panels to Pixels podcast as always. And I think by the time you get this, What If would have already wrapped on that podcast, but we'll be moving into more stuff as they come out. We're looking for Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man to come out at the end of the month of January. So we're going to probably do those 2 episodes at a time. And then obviously Daredevil Reborn when that comes out. Born Again, I should say. Keep saying
that trailer looks awesome.
Yeah. So we'll be covering that. So obviously more material for us to cover. And then obviously the Pyrocore music podcast will be out the end of January as well. So Becky and I will be launching it off with Jagged Little Pill by
Girl
Alanis Morissette.
power.
So with that discussion.
Nice.
So Lara, obviously you've guested on several. We did, as you said, Nosferatu here on Adrenaline Cinema.
I highly encourage everyone to not only listen to that episode, but go see that movie because it's awesome. And it just won a whole bunch of nods for Academy Awards. So I'm excited for it.
I'm seeing it again tomorrow, actually.
I know. You can stream it now, which I'm tempted to do.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, thank God. Because I do not have movie funds because it's to get a mortgage or house to go see a movie now. So now that it's streaming, I'm ready to watch and ready to listen to your all's coverage.
Yeah.
I was very, very excited about that.
All right. So as always, you could send feedback our way. Facebook page, obviously, is always the best way to get in touch with us. Facebook.com/AdrenalineCinemaPodcast. What's on the Facebook page is on Instagram because they're all meta. They all work together. So usually I put a image of what we're going to be doing, content below. I believe we did Mayfair Witches and post that out a while ago, but we didn't get any thoughts or anything. But, if you still have thoughts, you can still go back to it and place your comments, and then we'll read them the next time we're on. You could find us on YouTube as well. The podcast is on there. You could leave comments if you listen to the last episode. Just put them in there. I'll get them just the same. Or you could just send us a regular email. And then you could send that to AdrenalineCinemaPodcast@gmail.com. And you could write out a regular texted email. And then we'll read it the next time, obviously, on the podcast. Or if you want, you feel free to record yourself and we'll play it on the podcast. So it's as if you're a part of the podcast itself. But other than that, you can find us on various forms and various podcasts right now.
Excellent. Well, that's our coverage of season 2 of the Mayfair Witches, episodes 1 through 3. I'm Lara.
I'm Becky.
And I'm Billy with an IE.
And I just want to thank everyone for listening. I'm Mark.
Thanks for listening.